What's up, everybody? It's your boy aka Big Zeke, coming at y'all with another weekly inspirational thought. I pray that you and your families have all been doing well. And we're going to jump right into this week's thought that God blessed me with, entitled, Let Go of Our Past and Fully Forgive Others for the Sake of Our Futures. Now, y'all have probably seen a short or another video that I've put in the page concerning this topic, but God gave me this from a different angle and from an extended set of points, which we're going to dive into right now. All of the reference scriptures will be provided in the comment section as normal. So, the first of the three thoughts that God blessed me with is this. Sorry, having technical difficulties. Is this. When we forgive someone for something that they did to us in our past, we can't keep holding it over their heads in the present or in our future. Okay, it's not fair to keep holding past offenses over people's heads, especially if we said we forgave them. Okay, we also can't be so quick to lash out and be angry at people when they've offended us or commit offenses against us that we say we've forgiven, especially when they've forgiven us for things we may have done to them, or especially when someone has forgiven us for doing something similar to them. Okay? The way that forgiveness works, when you forgive someone, that's supposed to be that. That's supposed to be the end of it. That's it. But sometimes we get caught up dangling that or bringing it back up and throwing it in people's faces, and that's not fair. We're not going to be able to move forward in our futures effectively like this if we operate by throwing past offenses in people's faces. Okay, how do I know that? Well, Matthew chapter 18 verses 21 through 35. Now, I'm not going to read the entire thing for the sake of time, but basically there was a parable given here about a slave owner, and he had a servant who had servants, and I'm probably butchering this, so forgive me. And so the one gentleman who you'll read about, he was looking for forgiveness from his master for a debt that he owed. And so the master forgave him and let him go on his way. But then this same person who was given forgiveness for owing a debt decided to be very harsh with someone who owed him money. And instead of forgiving like he had been forgiven, he was holding that harshness and holding the fact over that person's head that they didn't repay him. So he felt offended. So later on in the chapter, and I'll start at verse 32, it says, Then his master called him and said to him, You wicked and contemptible slave, I forgave all that great debt of yours because you begged me. Should you not have had mercy on your fellow slave who owed you a little by comparison, as I had mercy on you? And in his wrath, the master turned him over to the torturers and jailers until he paid all that he owed. And that was verses 32 through 34. Okay? When you forgive someone, or if we're expecting people to forgive us, we have to be willing to forgive others. And if we say we forgive somebody, we can't just keep holding it over their head. We can't keep just taunting them with, oh yeah, because you did this. You know you did this to me, though. But it's all right. You know how people do the little side talking thing sometimes, like, yeah, we cool, even though you did do this. And it's like, how many times I'm going to say I'm sorry? How many times I'm going to apologize for that? How many times am I going to, ask for your forgiveness? Because people are going to get tired of asking for forgiveness after a while if they feel like every time they talk to you, it's going to get dangled over their head. And that's not a good way to operate. That's not a good way to be. Okay? The next point that God gave me is this, which ties into the end of the first point. We can't expect to truly be forgiven if we're not willing to truly forgive others. That's important because if we're holding on to something from years ago against someone and are not willing to forgive them, how can we truly expect for God or anyone here on earth for that matter to forgive us when we make a mistake or we may need to be forgiven? True forgiveness does not work that way. How do I know? Again, those scriptures I just read from Matthew chapter 18, 32 through 35 about that. And then also, and I've reading all of these in the Amplified version, I'm sorry. Also, Luke chapter 6, verse 31. Treat others the same way you want them to treat you. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you want forgiveness, if you want to be forgiven, and this is important for the title of this in order for our futures. If you want to be forgiven in the future for something you might do or accidentally do or an offense you might make, how can you expect someone to forgive you if you're unwilling to forgive some others? Forgiveness does not work that way. You have to be willing to give forgiveness as much as you are willing to receive forgiveness. That Luke scripture, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You have to be willing to give forgiveness as much as you want to receive it. We even heard it said in the Bible, it's better to give than to receive. That applies here because if we're willing to forgive others for offenses that they do to us, then when we need to be forgiven, that's everything you put out here in this world is going to come back. Be not deceived, for God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. If you sow forgiveness, if you give forgiveness, you will receive forgiveness. That's how it works. But you can't expect to receive something if you're not willing to give it. Okay? And the final point is this. If every time we speak to somebody and you're talking, you know how you talk to people you ain't talked to in a long time, or you talk to somebody and you've known them a long time. If every time we talked about them or talk to somebody and then all of a sudden they just enters into the conversation about an offense that was made against them by you, that you've asked for forgiveness for, and they say they forgave you for, if every time you talk to them that enters the conversation, then somewhere in the midst of that conversation, either true forgiveness hasn't been given, or they're still hurt by it and have not properly handled that hurt or found the way to handle that hurt. Or vice versa, if you're the one doing this to people, then you haven't found true forgiveness for that situation. Okay? Now, it's important for us, very important for us, to try to find a way to heal and try to find a way to find that forgiveness going forward. And we can do that by either going and seeking counseling, spending the time with God, and through fasting and prayer. But we have to find a way to find that forgiveness to truly move on. We have to try to find a way to move on, not just for them, but for us. Because like I mentioned before, if we expect people to be forgiving toward us for the many mistakes we make, we have to be willing to be forgiving towards others. So being able to forgive is essential, not just for the person that you're forgiving, but for you, for your future going forward. Because while we're in these bodies of flesh, we're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to want forgiveness. So because we know we're going to want forgiveness, we're going to need to be able to understand that we need to give forgiveness as well. And we need to also, and part of letting go of that past, like the title says, is forgiveness. That's why I keep bringing up that word forgiveness, because we're talking about letting go of the past for the sake of our futures. And forgiveness is a big part of letting go of things. It may not happen overnight. You might not forget it. It might still be stuck there. But forgiveness is a key component to letting go of the past, okay? Try looking at it like this. For those of you who know the story of Jesus being crucified and hung on the cross, Jesus was able to forgive those who had persecuted him and hung him on the cross. So, if Jesus was able to do this and they put him to death, then we should be able to find a way to forgive people when they commit offenses or when they offend us or when they do something to us that we don't feel is right. How do I know that? Well, Luke chapter 23, verses 33 and 34 in the Amplified Version reads this. And when they had come to the place called Calvary, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on the right hand and the other on the left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And they divided his garments and cast lots. Jesus didn't say, God, take them out because they done hurt me and they done put hands on me and did this to me. He didn't say, God, end them. He said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And if Jesus was able to forgive that kind of offense, think about how powerful that is for a second. He knows he's about to be put to death. And he still says to them, forgive them. He still says, Father, forgive them. And he knows he's about to be put to death. They're about to kill him. Then aren't we able to forgive somebody if they lie on us? Or if they cheat us out of something? Or if they're deceptive about something? We have to be able to learn how to forgive in order for our futures in order for us to operate the way that God desires us to operate and to move forward in our future successfully. We have to be willing to forgive others and to let go of the past. Nothing good comes from holding on to that past and holding it over people's heads. Nothing good comes from that. That's it for this week's video. I pray that going forward that you let go of that past. Forgive those who've offended you for the sake of your futures. I love you. I appreciate you all. Thank y'all for the support. Continue to pray for me and my family as I pray for you and yours. And as always, be inspired.